The wind chimes chimed softly as the night breeze swept through the overgrown garden. It was a quaint, eerie melody that seemed to echo the sadness of forgotten souls. My name is Emily, and I've always been drawn to stories that lurk in the shadows. Stories whispered in hushed tones around campfires, or shared in the secrecy of dimly lit rooms. When I stumbled upon the tale of the old church with the sinister bell tower, I knew I had to delve deeper. It wasn't just about the thrill of uncovering something mysterious. It was about giving voice to those whose stories had been lost to time. The church stood alone on a hill, its weathered stones bearing the weight of centuries. It was said that once, long ago, the bell tower had rung out joyously, calling the faithful to prayer. But now it stood silent and foreboding, its once gleaming bells tarnished with age. Intrigued, I ventured into the heart of the village, where the locals spoke of the church in hushed tones. They whispered of a curse that had befallen the land, a curse born of ancient sins that lingered like a shadow over the village. Determined to uncover the truth, I made my way to the churchyard, my footsteps echoing against the worn cobblestones. As I approached the towering edifice, a chill ran down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Ignoring my unease, I pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped into the dimly lit interior of the church. The air was thick with the scent of age and decay, and dust motes danced in the faint shafts of sunlight that filtered through the stained glass windows. Making my way towards the bell tower, I climbed the narrow stone staircase with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Each step seemed to creak with the weight of centuries, and I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden within the tower's ancient walls. Finally, I reached the top of the staircase and pushed open the door to the bell tower. The room was small and musty, with cobwebs clinging to the rafters like ghostly veils. And there, in the center of the room, stood the bell. It was larger than I had imagined, its surface pitted and worn from centuries of use. As I approached, I noticed strange symbols etched into its surface, symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Without thinking, I reached out and touched the bell, and in that instant, everything changed. The air was filled with a deafening cacophony of sound, as the bell began to toll with a ferocity that shook me to my very core. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the ringing stopped, leaving me standing alone in the silent darkness. But the silence was short-lived, as I soon realized that I was not alone in the bell tower. Shadows danced in the corners of the room, their forms shifting and twisting in the dim light. And then, with a suddenness that took my breath away, the shadows coalesced into the spectral forms of the damned. They were the lost souls of the village, their faces twisted in agony as they reached out to me with spectral hands. I could feel their pain, their sorrow, their longing for release, and I knew that I had unleashed something terrible upon the world. Desperate to atone for my unwitting transgression, I fled from the bell tower and made my way back to the safety of the village below. But try as I might, I could not escape the haunting sound of the bell, its mournful toll echoing in my ears long after I had left the church behind. And so, dear reader, I leave you with this cautionary tale. Beware the lure of curiosity, for there are some secrets that are better left undisturbed. For in the darkness of the bell tower The sins of the past are bound to the living, forever condemned to a macabre dance of atonement. The weight of what I had unleashed hung heavy on my shoulders as I returned to the village. Everywhere I looked, I saw the faces of the villagers, their expressions a mix of fear and resignation. They knew, as I did, that the tolling of the bell heralded something sinister, something beyond our understanding. Night fell like a shroud over the village, and with it came a sense of unease that seemed to permeate the very air. I couldn't shake the feeling that the spirits I had unleashed were watching me, their spectral eyes boring into my soul. As I lay in bed that night, I listened to the distant tolling of the bell, each chime sending shivers down my spine. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, that I was letting fear get the better of me. But deep down, I knew that something was terribly wrong. Sleep eluded me that night, and as the hours ticked by, I tossed and turned in my bed, haunted by visions of the bell tower and the tortured souls trapped within its walls. It was as if they were calling out to me, begging me to set them free from their eternal torment. And then, just as the first light of dawn began to creep through the curtains, I heard it, the sound of footsteps outside my window. Heart pounding, I crept out of bed and peered through the curtains, only to find myself face to face with a figure cloaked in shadow. For a moment, we stood there in silence, the weight of the unspoken hanging heavy between us. And then, with a voice that sent chills down my spine, the figure spoke. "You have awakened that which should never have been disturbed," it said, its voice a whisper on the wind. "Now, you must pay the price." With a suddenness that took my breath away, the figure vanished into the darkness, leaving me alone with my fear. I knew then that I was in grave danger, that I had meddled with forces beyond my control. Desperate for answers, I returned to the church, hoping to find some clue as to how to undo the damage I had wrought. But as I stood before the looming bell tower, I realized that there was no going back, no undoing what had been done. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of resignation, I made my way back to the village, knowing that I had condemned us all to a fate worse than death. For in the tolling of the bell, I had unleashed something ancient and malevolent, something that hungered for the souls of the living. As I write these words, dear reader, I can hear the tolling of the bell growing louder, its mournful sound echoing through the village like a harbinger of doom. I know now that there is no escape, no reprieve from the darkness that I have unleashed. And so I leave you with this warning: beware the chimes of the cursed bell tower, for they herald the coming of something far more sinister than you can possibly imagine. And pray that you never find yourself drawn into the darkness that lurks within its ancient walls. The days blurred into nights, each one heavier with the weight of impending doom. The villagers moved about in a state of perpetual fear, their eyes haunted by the spectre of what lurked in the shadows. And I, too, felt the weight of their fear pressing down on me, a constant reminder of the horrors I had unleashed. As the weeks passed, the tolling of the bell grew more frequent, its mournful sound echoing through the village with increasing urgency. It was as if the spirits trapped within the bell tower were growing restless, their hunger for release driving them to new heights of desperation. And then, one fateful night, the bell fell silent. At first I dared to hope that perhaps the curse had been lifted, that the spirits had finally found peace. But deep down, I knew that it was only a temporary reprieve, a lull in the storm before the final devastating blow. And sure enough, on the stroke of midnight, the bell began to toll once more, its sound more chilling than ever before. But this time, there was something different, something darker lurking beneath the surface. As I listened to the tolling of the bell, I felt a chill run down my spine, a sensation of dread unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It was as if the very air around me had grown thick with malevolence, choking off my breath and suffocating me with fear. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the tolling of the bell stopped, leaving me standing alone in the darkness. But the silence was short-lived, as a new sound filled the air, a sound that sent ice coursing through my veins and turned my blood to ice. It was the sound of laughter, low and mocking, echoing through the night like the whispers of the damned. And as I turned to flee, I saw them, the spirits of the bell tower, their spectral forms twisting and writhing in the darkness. With a cry of terror, I ran from the church, my heart pounding in my chest as I fled into the night. But no matter how fast I ran, I could not escape the laughter that followed me, mocking me with its cruel, taunting tones. And so, dear reader, I leave you with this final warning: beware the chimes of the cursed bell tower, for they are a harbinger of doom, a portent of the darkness that lurks within us all. And pray that you never find yourself ensnared in the web of horrors that I have unleashed upon this unsuspecting world. As I stumbled through the darkness, my mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. The laughter of the spirits echoed in my ears, a constant reminder of the horrors that awaited me. I knew then that there was no escape, no sanctuary from the darkness that had consumed me. With each step I took, the weight of my guilt grew heavier, a burden that threatened to crush me beneath its relentless weight. I had thought that I was strong, that I could face whatever horrors awaited me in the darkness, but now, as I stood on the precipice of oblivion, I realized that I was nothing more than a pawn in a game that I could never hope to win. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of resignation, I turned back towards the church, knowing that it was the only way to end the nightmare that had consumed me. As I approached the looming bell tower, I could feel the darkness closing in around me, threatening to swallow me whole. And then, with a final desperate cry, I stepped into the darkness, ready to face whatever fate awaited me. For in the tolling of the bell, I had found my destiny, a destiny bound by the chimes of the cursed bell tower, forever trapped in a macabre dance of atonement.